This story starts right away with a new case. May 11th, 1973. Angela Hughes was murdered by a thief who first stabbed her with a knife and then threw her from the second floor. All this was witnessed by her boyfriend. The case was closed as homicide, but nothing was ever heard of the guy again. This case has been reopened by the Thursday Murder Club, a club from Cooper Chase, a retirement residence that obviously has many activities and ways of entertainment. But this crime-solving club is more interesting. The team is composed of Elizabeth, Ron, and Ibrahim. The three of them are not convinced that Angela Hughes' boyfriend just disappeared into thin air, so there is definitely something fishy. I find this mysterious, very mysterious. Now we meet Joyce, one of the latest retirees to join Cooper Chase. She shows her daughter Joanna, who is another multimillionaire, all the things the residence has. Honestly, with those luxuries, even I would rush there. While Joyce was showing her the clubs, she accidentally entered the crime club, and Joanna was shocked because right in the middle of the room they had a photo of a dead woman. Joyce feels a bit hurt because first, her daughter always makes very short visits, and second, she has already been there for weeks and still doesn't know which is her club. The brief encounter they had earlier with Joyce was key for Elizabeth. Joyce was not so shocked by the picture of the corpse. Therefore, they concluded that Joyce in her youth had been a nurse or something similar. Yes, indeed, Joyce devoted her life to nursing, so they invite her to help with some questions. Now we meet Ian Vent, another millionaire and at the same time, one of the owners of Cooper Chase. The man is in a hurry with his next business, and that is why he hired an illegal Polish worker to do the jobs that need more pressure. What does he want to do? Simple. Demolish the Cooper Chase cemetery to build a shopping center or something like that. And in the residence remodel everything into apartments. The Polish man Bogdan Jankowski is not very happy with the job of putting pressure, because you cannot just kick the elderly out. But Ian doesn't care at all, since after all the old people are more gone than here. Another owner and partner of Cooper Chase is Tony Curran, who greets him in the hallway. He has his aunt living in the place, and here Joyce gets new gossip. Tony is important to everyone because in fact he is the only one stopping his partner from taking over the residence to make apartments and a shopping center. Obviously, Joyce feels down because she just recently moved in. Joyce listens to the case carefully and is surprised by all the amount of information they have, being just a club, and asks how they have access. To which Elizabeth responds that all the data comes from a friend who also founded the club with her. The ex-agent Penny, who was a police officer in her youth but is now in the hospice wing. Poor Penny lies in her bed without giving any signals, with her husband always taking care of her. He also thanks Elizabeth for continuing the activities his wife loved so much. At the same time, we learn more about Elizabeth's life and that she lives with her husband Stephen. For now, she is the one taking care of him, mostly because poor Stephen suffers more and more from dementia every day. Still, he always carries his recorder to remember what he does during the day. Take note of this, my king, because it's key. The residence hosts a kind of security seminar by Officer Donna Day. Honestly, the elderly there do so many activities that a talk about burglars is boring to them. So, just as the Rules and Laws Club gave the police car a fine for a few hours for parking badly, Elizabeth decides to invite DeFreitas to lunch. While they were eating, since the officer is more updated with current cases, the club wanted to ask her questions to solve their mystery. And well, in order to build more trust, they all end up telling a little more. Ron was a great union leader. Ibrahim, an amazing psychologist. Joyce a nurse. And Elizabeth is humble because she only says she worked in office jobs. Oh yes, sure. Afterwards they say goodbye to the officer outside the residence. But two things quickly happen. First, DeFreitas meets Ron's son, Jason, a famous former fighter now on television. And second, they see Tony Curran arguing in the distance with Ian. The two owners of Cooper Chase argue once again about selling everything. But Tony promises the club folks that no one will move them out of there. The next day, Ian calls a meeting with the retirees. He claims he only does it for protocol because the decision has already been made. After the meeting, Tony returns home to keep preparing the defense, but finds everything is a total mess. Holy mother. Let's see what happened now. Someone broke into his house, and the fight begins. We get updated quickly. Tony Curran is dead. The news is reported on the radio. So Joyce, who is the first to hear it, informs the club of what just happened. Yes, she is sad about Tony's death, but there is something that excites her more. For the first time they will solve a case in real time. And yes, they must do it quickly, because they could lose the residence. DeFreitas, in the police unit, is treated by the men as just the one who serves coffee, nothing more. But the only person Elizabeth and the group trust in the police is her, so they act very fast. They make a whole plan to get DeFreitas incorporated into the case. Now, how did they manage that? Yes, while Ron and Ibrahim pretended to be a crazy man and a psychologist who supposedly have key data for the investigation, Elizabeth and Joyce went to the station to supposedly file a robbery report. Lies. They only asked to be attended by DeFreitas in order to interrogate her privately and see if she wanted to represent them in this investigation of Tony's death. DeFreitas says, "But how are you going to do it if those jerks don't even consider me?" And well, the club gives her the job in less than 20 minutes. When Chief Hudson goes to talk with Ron, he pretends that he will only speak with Miss Defrey. He claims only she makes him feel confident. Say no more because of that influence, and since they need Defridas' data, she is promoted to the intelligence division. Well done. Elizabeth reads the tax statements of Cooper Chase and finds something that catches her attention. There are several numbers that have appeared, but she doesn't understand them. So Joyce calls her daughter, yes, the millionaire accountant, to review those accounts and see if there is something strange. Discovering that Ian, after Tony's death, has just absorbed all his shares. Defridas and Hudson go to Cooper Chase to interview Ron. The thing is that the officer has one more clue. In Tony Corrin's house, they found a photograph of him with another man, but they don't know who he is. Defridas solves that quickly and says it is Bobby Tanner, an important boss. And now things get tough because Tony could have ties with Bobby. The officers arrived and the club already had everything set up, even raising the temperature to make the chubby man nervous. The goal here is to get something key like Tony Curran's time of death. But since Hudson does not want to talk, Elizabeth tells him she could give him the Cooper Chase accounts, something that would take them years to access. Done. There's a deal, and it is Defridas who carries it out because she knows they need to move forward. Jason was outside signing autographs, and Ron introduces Hudson to his son. Here he takes the opportunity to get some pictures, but look at what happens here. Do you remember the photo Hudson showed Defridas? Well, it had traces of being cut. In that picture, there is an arm with a tattoo, and it's the same one Jason has. Right there, Elizabeth also gives condolences to Tony Curran's aunt. But something catches her attention: the flowers that had just arrived for the lady. The dedication was signed by someone with the initials B&T, and in order to determine Tony's time of death, the club traces the route from the residence to Tony's house to see if it was possible for someone to get there in record time and kill him. After studying it, Ibrahim concludes that Ian was not the one. Defridas and Hudson go to Ian to interrogate him. They want to know why Bobby Tanner has a photo with Tony, and the partner answers, What happened is that Bobby was the third partner of Cooper Chase, and the bad thing is that for the moment, his whereabouts are unknown. At night, Defridas tells Elizabeth about the recent discovery concerning Ron's son. Elizabeth is shocked, but she is even more startled when behind her appears a man who warns her to leave the dead in the ground. The day has come when Ian is going to demolish the cemetery, but Ron has already barricaded himself at the residence gate. Everyone tells Ian off from A to Z, but Elizabeth notices something else. She sees someone supposedly starting to dig in the graves. She interviews him, and it is the Polish man. Elizabeth uses her mother's name to gain his trust. She gets from him the information that he works for Ian, so she goes straight to the point. Did that guy ask you to kill Tony? And no, the Polish man says he would do anything to return to his country, except kill someone for the jerk Ian. The people were still gathered at the gate, and Ian was trying to walk away, when suddenly the man falls to the ground. Joyce goes quickly to see him, and has nothing but bad news. Ian is dead. The Polish man went all the way to Elizabeth's house and played a chess game with Stephen. Right away he tells her that he figured out she wasn't really named like her mother, but instead of getting angry or coming with threats, Bogdan tells her he wants to show her something. What is it? Look, my king. Hold on because this is intense. That day, while digging, Bogdan found a corpse in the cemetery. Elizabeth tells him, all right, and the discovery. My dear, look carefully, ma'am. There is a corpse on top of a coffin. Horror. Jason is arrested by Defridas and Hudson for not being able to explain why he had photos with the Cooper Chase partners. This doesn't go much further because Ron and Ibrahim act as his lawyers and, well, how did they manage to clear him? Because Ron made his son talk. Come on, explain where you were the day of Tony's death. And Jason reveals why all the mystery. The truth is that he was sleeping with Ian's wife. Good one. At night, Elizabeth hears someone entering her house. Damn, it's the same guy from the cemetery, only now he left her some flowers. These have another warning message. Defritas arrives to Elizabeth to bring her the latest gossip. The bones from the cemetery belong to Peter Mercer? Who the hell was he? Do you remember that at the beginning we talked about the boyfriend who saw his girlfriend die and then disappeared? Well, now it is known that he didn't move to another country. He was simply killed. Elizabeth already noticed that both her flowers and those for Tony's aunt came from the same flower shop, so they end up going there. Oh damn. Here she finally finds, unintentionally, the whereabouts of Bobby Tanner. Only now he is called Dear War. Just as suspected, Elizabeth's suspicions hit the mark. Here, since she has a police officer on her side, Elizabeth decides the best thing is for Defridas to leave them alone. And so finally Bobby decides to talk. He clears himself completely of Tony's death, but he does throw out a curious detail. Tony Curran, at the end of the day, was also involved in shady businesses, such as bringing in illegals to force them to work in exchange for giving back their passports. Done? Elizabeth offers him the best deal. I won't talk about your dirty business, but I will choose a buyer to purchase your Cooper Chase shares, and you let us live in peace. Bobby agrees, since he didn't want to do anything with the place anyway. But then Elizabeth remembers he mentioned illegals without passports, and she thinks of her mother. The only one in that situation is the Polish man. Damn. Once again Bogdan and Stephen were alone in the living room playing chess. While they were moving pieces, Stephen had a moment of lucidity, and he tells Bogdan that even though dementia is slowly taking him away, he has been paying attention to many things about his wife and the case. That is why his conclusion is that Bogdan killed Tony. He doesn't know the reason, but he is absolutely sure about it, and then poor Bogdan, realizing he has been discovered, confirms that, yes. But he highlights that it was by chance, because he only wanted to recover his passport to return to Poland with his mother. Just then, Stephen sinks back into dementia and Bogdan offers him some tea. But very close by, he had already seen all of the man's pills. Since Elizabeth already knows her husband is in danger with a murderer, she raises the alarm, and everyone goes to Cooper Chase. Elizabeth enters just as Stephen had already drunk the tea. So here she exposes the Polish man. Bogdan replies, "Lie, you have no proof. And well, my king, life gives you surprises. Surprises life gives you." Stephen's recorder had been on the whole time, and the police heard the confession. Damn, it's over, right? Bogdan repeats that it all happened by chance. He only wanted to return to his country. And Elizabeth confirms his truthfulness because he didn't actually manage to poison her. Husband. And so we reach the end of this story. The Thursday Murder Club solved something else, but Elizabeth still had one more thing left. The case from the beginning? Some old photos tell her the whole truth? Do you remember the boyfriend? Well, he was actually the killer of the girl. And why wasn't anything said? Because the guy was a policeman, and the organization protected him. That is something Penny, the club's founder, always hated. Because she was one of the colleagues who saw how the guy always celebrated his achievement. What did Penny do? She took justice into her own hands. She killed Peter Mercer and buried the body in the cemetery. That was her biggest secret, along with her husband. So, since Ian was going to demolish the cemetery, and they would obviously find the body, and since her husband always had access to strong medicine, he was the one who killed Ian the day of the protest. Oh my God. The poor old man felt exposed and only cried because he had failed his wife in his plan to protect her. So, knowing that Elizabeth would also hand them over to the police, he only asks for privacy to say goodbye to her. No, friends. This story does not end so badly. The man did say goodbye, but he decided to follow his beloved into eternity. After the burial, the club officially welcomes Joyce. She has earned it, and they are sure Penny would have liked it that way. Right there, Joyce's daughter also arrives and is delighted to see how her mom has quickly adapted to the place and, most of all, that she is happy. Elizabeth tells her, "Well then, do you want to see your mom happier? Buy the place," and so it was. Joanna will buy Cooper Chase, and there will still be a Thursday Murder Club. This story ends like that. Each of the members celebrates happily with their family, waiting for new cases to solve.